Okay, before I show you how to do this sheet, I want you to understand that there are many possible answers. What I'm going to show you here is just one possible answer. Every single person in this class could have different answers and they could still be right. So our first step is to take these two graphs. You'll put them on your iPad graphing calculator. I have a graphing calculator right here that I'm going to put them on. So my first one, y equals x squared. And my second one is y equals negative parentheses x squared parentheses minus 5. I have those two in those two spots. I will graph them. Alright, directions say describe a transformation that maps the first graph onto the second graph. So how would I get that graph, the first graph, onto that graph, the second graph? Well, I could rotate it. I could vector, flip, vector. But what's the easiest way of getting it there? I think the easiest way of getting there would be just to take this thing and flip it over on top of this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 apart, which means if I put a line at 2.5 right here, a lazy line at 2.5, this graph would flip over onto this graph. So I'm going to put reflect over the line y equals negative 2.5. That would put the first one on top of the second one. So your goal in all of these is to put them on your graphing calculator and decide, hey, how does this graph map onto this graph? What would I have to do to it? The second set, describe which type of symmetry each graph has. Write none if it has no symmetry. If line symmetry, name the line of symmetry. If rotational symmetry, state degrees and center of rotation. So I am going to first clear these off. I'm going to make sure my mode is in radians. This will not work unless your mode is in radians. On your iPad calculator, I've shown you how to do that. I'm going to type in y equals sine of x minus 4. I will go to the graph, and I notice I get the sine wave, which I've seen before. This particular sine wave has a dot down 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes through 4 on the axes. And I notice if I put a spot here, if I put a center of rotation here, and I rotated that graph, it would be the same graph if I rotated around that point. So what type of symmetry does this graph have? I would say this graph has rotational symmetry around 0, negative 4. Rotational symmetry around 0, negative 4. Now, this thing would have other types of symmetry. It would have a line of symmetry coming down here where I could fold the two halves together. This half would fold onto this half if I divided it down this spot. So again, these have other answers. I'm going to try to base my symmetry off of points on the axes and off of lines on the axes. So that would be something that you'd want to do. Alright, you can do that now, and you can do that. And here are a set of possible answers for you. There's the top. You can pause the video and check your answers. And there's the bottom.